Segment features industry stalwarts sharing their insights on the evolving workforce landscape. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is no longer a futuristic concept. It's now an essential collaborator in our personal and professional lives. But instead of fearing the AI, how do we harness its power to empower the human potential? Our first leadership panel discussion on the topic AI as a catalyst, empowering the human workforce, explores just that. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists. Our first introduction is the moderator of this panel discussion, Mr. Tanwar, CHRO, AlonoS. Next, we have Ms. Upasana Nischal, who's the India site head and head of HR India, Fidelity International. The next leader we have is Mr. Jaspreet Bakshi, partner and India HR leader at Marsh, McLennan. Next, we have Mr. Tarn Katyal, director and CHRO at Niva, Bupa Health Insurance. Next, we have Dr. Vishal, Talwar, COO at Southampton University. And completing the panel, we have Mr. Rohit Vishal Gupta, the CHRO of Varun Beverages Limited. Over to you, Mr. Raj.
Hello. Thank you so much to all the esteemed panelists for joining us for this session. We are running slightly late, so I'll try to do justice and cover it up in as much as time we can. Thank you so much, Dr. C. Jayakumar, for setting up the context right. And that's where I want to begin sharing a small little story with. So the story begins when I was just 10-year-old. The story is not half an hour long. I'll take very short. So when I was just 10-year-old, my father gave me a challenge saying that you get some good percentages and I'll give you an encyclopedia. And that time, encyclopedia used to cost $30,000. I'm not sure how many of you know it, but it did cost it $30,000. And I was so excited saying that time, $30,000, I'm going to study. Fast forward, day before yesterday, I told my son, you get good marks, I'll give you this encyclopedia. He looked at me and he laughed and he said, are you sure about it? You want to give me this? I'm like, why? He said, you haven't opened it in last 10 years. You're telling me you will give me this as a gift and I'll read it. That's how the world has changed, you know. So if you look at when it started to what had happened and what's happening now, it's phenomenal. And a lot of us, we get confused with so much of AI and tech coming in between. And that's another discussion. Again, I go back to Dr. C. Jayakumar, where I was questioning, is it really AI? So let me ask a fundamental question to all of you. Which is the most common AI that you have heard of? Each one of you here. Can you chat GPT? Okay. Have you heard of a term called as temperature or Celsius in ChatGPT? Can anyone of you raise hands and say, you know, what is temperature or what is Celsius? So this is one of the biggest learning for us as HR professionals, as professionals in this domain. We talk a lot about technology, but we do not use tech to its fullest to get the best out of it. And we often say that is tech going to drive us or we will drive the tech? And again, very 30-second small little story, and I'll go back to then and question and pick up the large brains. Story again starts with my son. If you type something on ChatGPT, it gives you a very irritating word called as tapestry. So in any of your LinkedIn post, if you find word tapestry, you can assume somebody has taken the output from there and given it. So I was trying to find out, how do I not get this word? And I was getting irritated time and again, how do I get this word off ChatGPT? My son came and said, Dad, you look a little puzzled. I said, yes, I am puzzled. He said, what do you want? I said, I want this output to look very authentic. Somehow I'm not getting a sense of it. So he went to platform.chatgpt.com. He changed something in temperature in Celsius and the output came and I was amazed. I'm like, what did you do? He said, Dad, you're getting old. You need to be like me if you want to use it to the fullest. And I was like, why did you say that? And how do you learn? I'm still working for an AI company. I know how AI works. How have you got this? He said, because my teacher can catch hold of me if I have taken the output from ChatGPT, so I have to be smarter than my teacher not to get caught. And that's when I learned that if you look at this new generation, they are far ahead than what we are. We talk a lot, but we adopt less. This new generation adopts faster than what we talk. And that's how the world is changing. And I will take a lot of examples during this conversation when I pick brain, that we often confuse in between these three words, which is automation, digitization, and AI. And if you can actually demystify it, you have gone pretty close to AI. So since we are talking about AI, Upasana, my first question is going to be to you. Uh, Whether we like it or not, it has impacted jobs. In certain fashion, it has, and it will impact more. Uh, what's your view on it? Has it arrived truly? Has it reached its potential? Is it really impacting now?
So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. The way I see it, I think we are well beyond the inflection point now. 2 years back, we were talking about being at the inflection point, but now we are well beyond it. AI is absolutely all around us. Each one of us is impacted by it in some way or the other. We are definitely on the journey, and we are probably not just on a train, we are on a jet plane, I think. I also think that in the last, let's say, 5 centuries or so, we've seen 5 industrial revolutions, from mechanical to electrical to electronic to internet to now AI. Every time we have feared something, it's been proven that it ended up being something good for the humanity. So one, I think this is good for us. There are obviously, in the previous speaker was sharing that it's both challenge and an opportunity. I definitely see it like that. We have opportunity to turn it on its head and look at it like a friend and not be a victim of it, first of all. And the way I see it is that it is basically human and machine working in tandem, more of a symbiotic relationship. And the same will apply to jobs as well, to my mind. There will be jobs that we'll need to reimagine. We will have to, as leaders, as academicians, we need to probably look at our job scenarios absolutely differently from the way we have looked at it in the last 2 or 3 decades, for example. So in our organization, for example, we often, more recently, we've started really opening up the job descriptions completely and looking at breaking down the traditional roles into smaller tasks and assessing how many of those are repetitive, how many of those can be AI'd, and how many of those still need human intervention, and coming up with new roles altogether. So to answer your question, have they started impacting jobs? Yes. To what extent? Moving very fast. There are still a lot of catch-up to be done. The organizations are at different points in the continuum, depending on where they are in the evolution, the kind of funding they have, to be honest. That's the practical aspect of it. How much are we really ready to invest? The leadership's vision towards it, and the organization's agility to move quickly on the AI path, depending on that different organization and depending on the size of the organizations. They are at different points in the continuum. But one thing is for sure, jobs are getting disrupted, rather displaced, probably is the right word. And given the cost pressures that most organizations are in these days, it's becoming more of a need than a luxury. So yes.
Truly appreciate that. And in fact, 2.5 weeks back, something happened in the history of humanity which has not happened ever. We all know, first DeepSeek came in. We need to just address this elephant in the room, wherein the difference in between human beings and others, one of the biggest reasons is reasoning. We reason pretty well, am I right? We question everything and we look back and we create different interpretation of the same view what we see in front of us. And Jaspreet, I'm going to make it a little difficult for you because you come from a consulting background. So my question then stems from the fact that a baby is born in form of DeepSeek, which beats the very basic purpose of reasoning, and it is born on reasoning. So there was this chat GPT which was learning with deep learning coming up. And here comes a baby which is 200-year-old on day 1 of its birth and kills the concept of reasoning anymore and gives you superior edge on learning. Is skilling anymore going to be a hype, or is it reality? Skilling is going to help anymore because reasoning is now no more just with human, Now even AI can reason back.
So interesting, very interesting question, and good afternoon, everyone. There has been a lot of conversation about what will AI do, and I think there is that whole element of that AI will replace jobs, replace humans. Yes and no. Going back to the earlier conversation, opportunity and threat. I think there are 2 or 3 elements that we need to keep in mind. The way AI is changing the landscape, the time it used to take earlier to now, it's drastically reduced. Right, and that's we are seeing day in, day out. The advantage of AI was it was helping us completely take away automated tasks. It was looking at the repetitive tasks, making very, very simple. It was trying to look at how can we use that in a different manner, right? And the idea was 2 or 3 basic aspects. One, was AI replacing jobs or it was creating more value with the jobs? 2, was it transforming jobs or the nature of the jobs and how we could do it? Now comes in a new positioning where we are talking about not just repetitive tasks, the decision making of that completely changes. I think the challenge is, are we even ready to comprehend what it can do?
True.
Right, and that's what the basic philosophy is. Every time we don't know something, the first response is, oh my God, it's going to take away my job, it's going to change the world. We still don't know that. Right, and I think we've seen that in AI, we've seen that in the different things that have happened over the world. From a consulting standpoint, when we talk to our clients, and this is a question that keeps coming back to us, one of the basic things is we keep going back and saying is, for the kind of work that you do or the kind of workforce that you have, do you think the basic aspect of whether it is the reasoning, whether it is designing of solution, whether it is understanding the client customer need, will that go away? And the answer is no, it won't. That's the first point that we need to keep in mind, right? That's something which is very important. The second element is AI will only help you take faster decisions basis the information that is available with you. But AI will not take away the creativity. AI will not completely take away the human relationship element. AI will not completely take away the solution design based on actual judgment, right? And that's what we are trying to help our clients understand, that once you have understood what that means for your business model, then let's completely redefine what will that reskilling piece look like. It is not one solution fits all. It's not a basic training module that we can do. You gave examples of your son. I think there's a very, it says that over the next 3 to 4 years, 75% of the workforce is going to be Gen X and millennials. And they are natives to this.
Sure.
So they will handle it very, very differently.
You're so right, and I completely agree. One solution cannot fit all. And again, I call myself a HR technologist, and I ask the similar question because I have another technologist at home to whom I ask all AI-based questions. I'm like, I get so much confused with the Chat GPT, Perplexity, and so many other coming up. How do you keep pace up to technology? And the answer is very simple when it comes to this younger generation. He says that, Dad, I just follow one. And if you follow one, others will adopt today or tomorrow. Life becomes so simple. But I was feeling a little confused. So you're so right. It depends on what is the need of the hour and how do you do it. Vishal, my next question is to you. Considering the fact that you come from an academia, background, and more so ever with your latest venture, education is going to be very, very pertinent. And I say often, automation to augmentation, where you need to see this coming into action and people implementing it. How do you foresee AI in particular changing the skilling landscape? What's your view on that?
Of course, I think it's a very, very pertinent question. Before that, you talked about your son and the fact that, there was a particular story. In my case, just to give you an idea of the encyclopedia versus something else. So now my daughter, she talks about, if I do this well, will you give me Robux? Right? So Roblox, and she needs Robux. I've promised her I'll give her 3,000 Robux. So it's a very different world that we're talking to currently. And it completely at times amazes me. But I think coming back to your point, we obviously are living in a world where, you have driverless cars. So I was recently in San Francisco, and you have way more cars a dime a dozen. They just keep moving here and there everywhere without a driver in front. It unnerves you at first. So the bigger question that, something that I feel is a thought that not only the higher education sector, let's say the primary, secondary school sector has to think about is the two divergent things that are happening currently. One, the need to be more critical and the need to be more decision-making orientated, problem solving, a lot of stuff that we talk about, empathy. But at this other time, technology is kind of taking us away from a lot of that, right? So, while we are expecting our students, our kids, everybody to be able to evolve in that direction, because we believe that, skills 5.0 will be about low skills and will be about high skills. There'll be nothing essentially in the middle, right? Because everything will be automated. The issue is, are we taking some of the inherent capabilities, the willingness, the motivation to learn to these requirements that we feel are required?
So true.
Right? So I think that's something that we as a sector and then the corporate world also has to be able to engage with each other to see how we can change that, because that's something that's irreversible. Technology will make things so easy that it will not necessarily need you to learn. You just pick up something, it will become just in time. You just use that to be able to do a particular task. And that's completely divergent to a lot of the ethos and the philosophy that you have as far as education is concerned. The other question then is that are we as higher education providers, are we as education providers aligned with what's happening in the industry, what's happening in technology? I think, let's be honest, we're playing catch up, right? Our students are more evolved at this juncture because for them, they're using technology for varied reasons. We're still possibly doing what you mentioned, a little bit of augmentation, right? A little bit of not using it to automate, but having a bit of an orientation towards, okay, let me try and use this. So let's, to give you an example, at least where I'm currently, we tend to use AI to be able to sift through a lot of, let's say applications and resumes and, based on certain requirements. I think a lot of the inherent recruitment processes of students, for example, if you have a large base of, applications, or if you have students who train on repetitive aspects, training on voice, training on communication, training on a lot of all that, is utilizing a certain amount of AI-enabled technology. But I think there's a lot more that we can do, in my opinion.
Truly, I appreciate that. And I think it's very deep. That brings me to you, Tarun, in particular, because you represent Niva, Bupa, and one of the biggest difficulty in a business like yours is, specifically claim ratio and accuracy becomes a very, very important aspect. There again, HR, like if I look at HR and I'm trying to look at and combine both together, because in HR also decision making becomes very important. We often reach a state of conflict. Now, the way we interpret and solve it is through chain of thoughts, which is again a concept in AI, which AI has been able to master very well. And MOE, which is mixture of experts that it works on, the new model that I'm talking about. How do you think in your business AI's impact the decision making, either in HR or in your business? We'll be very happy to know about that.
So good afternoon, everyone, once again. And thank you for the question. This is quite relevant to us. And actually, if I have to go back, this question has been going on in our organization throughout. So first comes the thought that now this, whatever new thing has come, this is only for technology, or this is for people who are doing analytics, or this is for everyone. Now this is where we started off. Then in the org structure, obviously, these changes were made that bring in some experts who are able to, expose us more towards how this goes ahead. For some time again, the mindset was that this is meant for this particular function. And these guys are now going to implement AI in the entire organization. Then comes the next stage where those guys do something and others are not able to understand, right? That is where, the acclimatization and need for creating business cases came in at all functions through a certain discussion framework, etc. need to come out that what are those repetitive tasks or what are those areas where you're looking at significant improvements and how can these guys help you on the same. I think cutting the story short, 3 things came out eventually. One, that there has to be a single source of data available in the company, which I think Mr. Jayakumar mentioned, which we also initiated, called a data lake, where we involved all the functions, saying that you need to put, first of all, you need to decide what all data is required for all your decisions which you take. Now put all that data, in that lake, and that becomes single source of truth for the entire organization. And all the decisions are driven from that data lake itself. Now comes this next stage where, what are those decisions which can happen automatically? So which, coming back to your question on the claims subject. So earlier, talking about a claim, health claim comes to the company, which might involve, 100 areas to be assessed, to be reviewed, and then decision to be taken, etc., which used to take days and sometimes weeks to investigate. Now this data lake, what it helps you to do is that you have a rule engine which gets created, which is generative in nature, where anything which comes to the company for the purpose of decision, it's run through the rule engine itself, and automatically the decision comes out. If there are discrepancies in the cases coming across, then the human intelligence is required. So another point which comes on the table now for discussion is that in the entire organization, therefore, people need to be treated as people. Now it is not resources. Let people devote time on doing something which they are best at, and let all the other routine matters or analytics or data insights be driven by these methods, mechanisms, etc. But again, coming back, the most difficult part here is orienting the entire organization towards this frame of mind, because it's all about mindset. You have been used to working in a certain way. Now all the functions need to understand that what's the business. So for example, HR, everybody says here, recruitment needs to happen, or employee life cycle needs to happen. What is there which will change? In our case, I'll just give 2-3 examples. In case of recruitment, so we took help of these guys from analytics to create a method where, starting from scanning of huge number of CVs through a model, which applies critical to quality parameters required for the role, then writing those job descriptions in a minute, scanning those CVs and giving the best fit CVs available for assessment, interviews, etc. Now this not only standardizes the entire process, but gives tremendous upside on the candidate experience, time to hire, and quality of outcomes on the candidate.
I think it gives a lot of insight that if a change is planned, decision making becomes easy and target audience is clear. Last question, Rohit, is to you. Going to make it far more difficult, and I know by purpose we have kept these questions slightly different from what people hear in normal conferences, otherwise it will become repetitive. Since you're a close friend, I'll make sure I'll give you the most difficult part, which is biased. Humans have a tendency to get biased towards someone, I may like somebody's personality, somebody's way of talking, expressing. Bias is ought to obvious, comes in some other fashion. We are exploring and realizing AI carries less of bias, but still there are issues of hallucination and still there are issues that crop up. What's your outlook towards AI and bias? How do you think it will help in HR, and what's your outlook on that?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this question. I think when we talk about AI, we are addressing only one aspect of human intelligence, which is being addressed with technology, which is the cerebral intelligence. There is also a heart intelligence. There is also a gut intelligence. And when a human being decides, you use a combination of all of these when you are deciding specifically on people matters, say whenever you're taking a yes or a no decision for a candidate, right? So I think AI addresses one aspect of it, wherein it is going to take care of job description is to what is there on your CV match. And all of us who are there in the business know that CVs would be 60-70% there. There would be a lot of fluff and a lot of keywords put in strategically and all that, right? And that is where your gut intelligence and your heart intelligence comes into play. Okay. However, it is second aspect is also to understand is that how does AI work? AI works by learning what you put into the data. So whenever you look at a CV and you say this is shortlisted because of so and so reasons, it will start picking that up. And due to the repetitive behavior, it will say this is how most people are thinking, and hence this CV will get through. That's how the CV parsing happens. If all of us hold a certain kind of a bias when we are shortlisting or prioritizing a certain CV over another, I'm being very specific to recruitment so that the example gets through. So if all of us believe that if somebody comes from a so-called tier 1 institute, okay, they have to be good. And that is why those CVs, the moment you see a certain, say for example, an IIT, IIM written on the CV, they would, even if they've got certain less percentage somewhere or certain less match, you will certainly like to, let's meet this person, let's see what is there. That our our acceptability of variance becomes higher when you see certain brand names there. So if you continue to do that, and not just me, 10 other people continue to do that because of a certain bias that exists in the society amongst the people, AI will learn it. And the moment it sees those, it will start parsing those CVs ahead of the others. And that is where I think at a very fundamental level, the bias gets embedded into the way the AI is trained. And that is a problem. So how do we take care of that is another aspect wherein you need somebody to overwrite the logic by which the AI is getting trained. And a lot of advanced organizations who are seriously into this business do try and correct for that bias. But I think still some of those are too deeply embedded into the way the shortlisting would happen. And it could not just be, I'm just taking example of college. It could be region, religion, language, caste. But when you're seeing the CV, you don't know what's working behind your mind.
True.
But the AI is learning from you without you knowing that you are teaching the AI that way.
True.
So that's a huge problem, I think, which needs to be sorted.
Yeah, I really love the response that you said started with, the gut feeling, and then if the controller of the AI or the one who's teaching AI itself carries a bias, it's like spreading that indirectly into the system and impacting it. In the paucity of time, I actually wanted to extend it more, but I know a couple of you have to go on time. I am ending up with a particular scenario, and I want to participate with everyone and ask you, what do you feel, whether it's automation, digitization, or AI? Let's take an example. You have 2,000 employees, and out of 2,000 employees, there is one particular employee who's in your team and your friend, and your system, whichever system you are using, pops up the name of that individual and says, Mr. K.S. Bakshi, it's your birthday today. What do you think? Is it a digitization, AI, or automation? What do you think it is? Sorry? Okay, let's talk about how many of you feel it's AI. Can you raise your hands? How many of you feel it's digitization? Okay, couple. How many of you feel it's automation? Most of you feel it's automation. Okay. Now the same scenario, I'm just adding it. Since it's a leader's birthday, the mail goes to another 200 people and says that it's his birthday. Would you like to give a bouquet? So somebody sends a bouquet, somebody sends a voucher, somebody sends something else, and there are 200 people participating in it, impromptu, at their will, at their wish, and making that day very special for that individual. Is it automation, digitization, or AI? Let's start with automation. How many of you feel it's automation? Okay. And how many of you feel it's digitization? Very less. How many of you feel it's AI? Couple of you feel it's AI. Okay. Now, a scenario which is very different from the first few. In the same scenario, same situation, you picked up a gift, but now an alert comes in and it says he may not like this because looking at his consumer behavior, I can tell you this particular gift is not apt for him. What do you think? It's AI or it's digitization or it's automation? AI. That's the fine difference. Now, what is the right way of explaining it? I'll explain you in very simple words. So, in particular, when you talk to me about if anything is picking up a process and output is same, it's automation. If you put 10 machines in between, but output is exactly what it's supposed to be, it's pure automation. So if you put 10 programs on the top of it, and if you're getting by the end of it, it's still a JD. It is a JD only, which has come out of a couple of lines and a bit of tweaking here and there that has happened. I'm not saying it's not pure. Coming to the second part, which is digitization. When you add 5 dimensions on the top of it, which is customer, innovation, data, value, and competition, and it is on a platform, it becomes digital. That means it can accommodate far more larger. I'll give you a very small example to keep it simple. Earlier, if you are going to go and buy a book from a bookshop, but somebody is now delivering it, is automation. But now, when you go to Flipkart and you have book plus 100 things available on a platform where there are buyers and sellers, that means all 5 dimensions that I told you meet at one place. That is digitization. On the top of it, if it is telling you your preferred behavior of choice that you will end up buying or nudging you through is AI. Lot of us, lot of time get confused with automation and digitization being AI. The fundamental difference AI has been able to do in our lives is it started reasoning back with you. It starts telling you back. And I'll end with this one line. How many of you, again, I'm just raising a question just to provoke your thought. How many of you have typed back to ChatGPT saying that I disagree with the output? Genuinely raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, couple of 4. And what have you done after it? Okay. Have you ever tried using something on the top of it which is called as canvas and then challenged it back with temperature and other settings? Do it. You would realize it's a very different ball game altogether. So the point I'm trying to tell is that if we understand these fine aspects ourselves, life becomes so easy. In paucity of time and such learned professionals that we have with us, I'd like to open it for at least 5 minutes. Anyone has any question or 10 minutes? I understand, Vishal, you have to go. So I think a huge round of applause for one of our panelists, Vishal. He has to leave, but we'll be happy to pick some questions if you have. So over to audience for any questions if we can answer it for you. Yes. Yeah, there are a couple of hands in the back.
Can you mic set here, please? Yes. Ma'am, you could come here if you have a mic here.
I think the problem is we are still talking about adoption. We are not talking about implementation and governance. That's where the concerns and challenges are coming, isn't it? So it's all very fine if the business strategy, marketing strategy largely gets driven by data, right? Data-driven decision making, and it's almost algorithmic nature. But the question is, how do you do the monitoring and governance? Because everything requires AI largely is a loose cannon, isn't it? Governance issues are what is plaguing the industry. Large amounts of customer data, which includes very intimate personal data, and sharing with third-party platforms becomes a problem, isn't it? So these issues, I think we have moved beyond adoption. I think we need to talk about implementations and concerns regarding governance much more.
Can I take that?
Yeah, I think that's a statement, not a question, but I'm happy to if you can.
No, I think the aspect about governance which you're talking about, a lot of countries and a lot of governments are making very, very stringent rules about data management and data privacy. So not just GDPR, even in India, even in many other countries. So all those governances and controls will make it difficult for people to use the data loosely. Okay. However, one has to understand that it's a runaway train. It's a tool. How people use the tool, it is meant to how ethically we as a society and we as people use that tool. Okay, while the governments will put all checks and balances, etc., it's a tool, and how we use the tool, it is in our hands. And I think education is the best tool to prevent being scammed or getting into the wrong side of the stool.
On a lighter note, it reminds me of my friend. He's a big follower of DPDP, GDPR, and all that. The other day, I saw his picture in the hospital recovering, and he talks about data privacy. Are you understanding the world that we live in? It's very difficult. The world that we live in, we carry a phone. 70% of the time, we don't know the features and what data is going away. So we live in a very dichotomy full of world, whereas one side privacy, one side expression, which takes over what difficult to say.
So I'll just add to that. So there are multiple levels of responsibilities that we have, I guess. So you spoke about what governments are doing. Personally, if I share examples of our organization, we are focusing heavily on having the right, responsible AI framework. We have our own internal, so there are, of course, global frameworks, but we have also come up with our own RAI and rules layer. Which is further scrutinizing and somewhere controlling what is happening really on that platform. But at the end of it, the third layer, of course, is our personal responsibility on how do we really use that. So there needs to be controls at multiple layers, I guess, but and also personal levels, I guess.
Anybody else has any?
Yeah, hi. This is Professor Shilpi Jain. I'm from Ford School of Management. Very intriguing panel discussion, and where we were talking about that how the new generation is using AI, and they are exceeding what we people as Gen Z have been thinking about it. So my question from the panel is that we as an academicians are keep on trying to come up with the new curriculum, right? So like you mentioned about responsible AI as well. And responsible AI leads to ethics, transparency, and all those things. Now, the next thing, what I have recently witnessed, that organizations are using a lot of AI tools in terms of recruitment and selection. And often we have observed that students are, not only students, even the aspirants who wants to take jobs, they are unable to surpass those kind of AIs, and many times very worthy students are left behind. So I have two questions in mind, that how as an institution we can train our students who can basically qualify, number one. Number two, what new additions we can bring into our curriculum that satisfies organizations' requirements. So I would be happy to receive answers from the panelists. Thank you.
See, I'll take a punt and see the change is faster than what you're expecting. So you have to be faster than change. It's as simple as that. I started with it, that either technology drives you or you drive the technology. There is a very fine line in between. You need to realize where I'm coming in from. Again, I'll tell you, a lot of us, we are saying, because that's what we've heard about AI, am I right? That data trains AI and AI then gives you output. Again, I'm saying a lot of us, we are yet to mend our life with it. Something happened 2.5 weeks back, has actually deleted the concept of data anymore. It is built on something which is called as mixture of experts. That means it reads 10 different views, and earlier data was very big thing. That what data you give is what data it gives out. But DeepSeek has actually beaten it completely as a concept. What it does, it goes and looks at 10 experts, what is their view, and then come up with their own view on the top of it. So earlier OpenAI, which was actually closed, it was never open, never showed you how it works. It just shows you the result. Now with DeepSeek, it tells you how it is thinking with the chain of thought. Okay, you asked me this question, this is how it is. It shows you the chain of thought, and that tells you an end. What it tells you is that technology is driving the human being. The day you start driving it back, believe you me, that is something which I feel is required in our courses. If students can make those resumes through this technology, you will be a part of the game. But the day you realize that you're following technology, technology will always be ahead of you. I've realized that. But the day you take technology in your control, life becomes so easy. You know what is the output that you want. You know what is that you want to teach to students with different perspectives in mind. It's just that we take little longer to accept it has happened with us. That's what I feel.
So, no, absolutely. So I have a slightly different view here, to be honest. I think one thing very, very clear, and sir mentioned this, the 2-year MBA or the 3-year or 4-year courses, I think they're evolving, they're changing very fast. I don't know, what are we trying to inculcate and teach the students that are coming out? I can't have a student who's a wizard walking into a company and saying, I know everything. Very, very unlikely. Right? See, AI is going to change the nature of the job. AI is going to change the way we support our clients and customers. But AI is not going to take some very, very basic things away from the workforce. I will not want to follow and get inspired by an algorithm. I will still want to look up to a leader. I will still not want AI to tell me how to cultivate deep relationships in an organization or drive employee engagement. I will not want an AI to tell me what is morals and what is ethics. I will not want AI to tell me what is, how do you really do well in your life? Forget career, I'm just talking about life. Right? I think we'll have to be very, very careful that in the zeal to have new age curriculum designed and continue to change, I hope, and I'm conscious that I'm in presence of a lot of academicians here, I hope we are not diluting the basic essence of education in the enthusiasm that, oh, our curriculum should be the new age and should get people ready. Has to be a balance.
Thank
So
you
true.
for
I
saying
agree
that.
with
I
that.
really wanted to kind of just jump in here. I don't think you need to get into AI and make CVs and get selected. When we are looking at least specifically, when we are very, very clear, when we go to campuses and we look at freshers and youngsters, you're looking for high learning quotient, you're looking for leadership, you're looking for passion, you're looking for curiosity of somebody who's wanting to get their hands dirty. You're wanting to look into someone who's going to come in there and have the humility to learn and the courage to question, right? And I don't think any of these CVs or AIs would teach you that. So my suggestion, request is, while you work on the curriculum, etc., don't get too focused on how do you get your CV shortlisted. Work on basic fundamental traits of what makes a successful professional, and you'll all be there. That's a promise.
Just one suggestion here, irrespective of whatever streams students are coming from, data should be made as a core subject. So earlier, stream-based, we used to say it's a technical subject, it's non-technical subject. So whatever streams students are coming from, make this as a core subject.
I love the whole energy, and thank you so much for representing all the generation, me being the younger one, and I have a couple of older ones with me, but thank you so much. Okay, I've got already a note, but yes, please, you can add one more.
So just since the question also touched upon the coverage of curriculums, etc., somebody, I read somewhere that there are 3 types of adopters when it comes to AI. There are deniers, right, who completely deny, dismiss the existing of a technology like this, or say that, oh, it's a fad. Then there are developers and then deployers. So it's important that as we educate our students, we at least help them be in the last 2 categories. Either they become developers or a good deployers of technology. That mindset we really need to inculcate. Otherwise they will be really left far behind. So that's another mindset shift that we should try to bring from our program standpoint, that don't be a denial zone. It is here, it is going to change, it is moving things very fast. So at least be curious to understand how it may impact the jobs that they are trying to get.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause for all our panelists for making this happen.
A thought-provoking discussion indeed. As rightly pointed, the future belongs to those who embrace AI as a tool for innovation and not a threat. Thank you to all our panelists here who shared their experiences from their expertise, and Mr. Raj for moderating this session. May I please invite on stage Dr. Subir Verma, the director at Force School of Management, to felicitate our esteemed panelists. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And now we conclude our first panel for today.